In the heart of the Moonstone Pack, a celebration turned to dread. A new alpha princess was born, but the seer's prophecy sent a chill through the elders. She will possess power beyond any alpha, the seer whispered, her voice trembling. Power to unite, or to shatter the packs into oblivion. Fear, a poison in the hearts of the powerful, sealed the infant's fate. The Alpha King, her own father, gave the order. She is a threat. End her life. The tiny princess, wrapped in a silken blanket, was taken into the dark forest, her soft cries swallowed by the rustling leaves. A shallow grave was dug, a life meant to be extinguished before it ever truly began. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Euron, a rogue wolf, exiled for challenging the very Alpha King, who now condemned his own daughter, was drawn by the scent of royal blood and fresh dug earth. He found the small bundle, a miracle of life left for dead. Looking into her eyes, which held the shimmer of 1,000 stars, he saw not a threat, but a survivor. He scooped her up, his rogue heart finding a purpose it had long lost. He named her Lyra, after the brightest constellation in the night sky. In the shadows of the wilderness, far from pack politics and cruel prophecies, a new unconventional family was born. For 6 years, the forest was Lyra's kingdom, and Euron was her loyal subject. He taught her the ways of the wild, how to track, to hunt, to listen to the whispers of the wind. She was a quick learner, her senses preternaturally sharp, her speed and strength already hinting at the immense power dormant within her. They were a pack of two, bound not by blood, but by a love fiercer than any pack law. Euron, who had been cast out for his defiance, found redemption in raising the child his former pack had discarded. Lyra, who knew nothing of her royal lineage, knew only the unwavering love of her adoptive father. Their peaceful existence was shattered on a cold, rain-soaked night. A skirmish with territorial bears left Euron mortally wounded. As he lay dying, his breath coming in ragged gasps, he knew he could no longer keep the truth from Lyra. With his last ounces of strength, he told her everything. He spoke of the Moonstone Pack, of her royal birth, of the prophecy that had marked her for death. He told her of her father, the Alpha King, whose fear had outweighed his love. They feared your power, little wolf, he rasped, his hand gently stroking her hair. But it is not a curse. It is your birthright. Tears streamed down Lyra's face, mixing with the rain. The world she knew had crumbled in a single moment. The man who was her entire world was gone, and in his place was a truth more terrible than any forest predator. She wasn't just Lyra, the rogue's daughter. She was a princess, betrayed and left to die. As Euron's light faded from his eyes, a new fire ignited in hers. It was a fire of grief, of rage, of a promise forged in loss. She would not let his sacrifice be in vain. She would grow strong, she would master the power they feared, and she would return. Revenge was no longer just a word. It was a vow whispered over a grave, a promise to the only father she had ever known. The years that followed were a crucible. Lyra trained relentlessly, pushing her body and her powers to their absolute limits. The forest became her training ground, the wild animals, her sparring partners. She learned to command the shadows, to move like a whisper on the wind. Her wolf form was a magnificent creature, larger than any ordinary wolf, with fur the color of midnight and eyes that glowed with an ethereal silver light. The power the seer had prophesied was no longer dormant. It flowed through her veins like a raging river, a raw, untamed force that she slowly learned to control, to wield as a weapon. She was no longer a lost girl. She was a storm, gathering strength, waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came 12 years after Euron's death. Lyra, now a young woman forged in solitude, and driven by vengeance, felt a pull toward the lands bordering the Moonstone Pack. It was time. As she ventured closer to her old home, she stumbled upon a patrol of pack warriors. Their scent was familiar, a sickening reminder of the pack that had cast her out. They saw a lone rogue, an easy target. They were wrong. The fight was brutal and swift. Lyra moved with a grace and ferocity they had never witnessed. She wasn't just fighting, she was a force of nature, her movements a deadly dance. She disarmed and defeated them without taking a life, leaving them bruised and bewildered. A clear message to their alpha. As the last warrior fled, a new scent hit the air, one that stopped her heart. It was intoxicating, powerful, and utterly unfamiliar. It was the scent of pine after rain, of crackling embers, of home. From the trees stepped a warrior unlike the others. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with an aura of command that rivaled her own. His eyes, the color of molten gold, locked onto hers, and in that instant the world fell away. The rage in her heart quieted, replaced by a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through her very soul. He was an alpha. His scent, his presence, the look in his eyes, it all screamed one undeniable word: mate. The warrior, Kaelen, was the alpha of the neighboring Shadowcrest pack, known for his strength and fair rule. He had been drawn by the sounds of the fight, expecting to find a border skirmish. Instead, he found her. He saw the power radiating from her, the wildness in her silver eyes, and felt an immediate, primal connection that shook him to his core. He had heard whispers of a rogue wolf of incredible power, but the reality of her was more than he could have ever imagined. He stepped forward, his posture non-threatening, his gaze holding a mixture of awe and recognition. He didn't see a threat or a rogue. He saw his other half. The path of revenge Lyra had walked for so long had just taken an unexpected, complicated turn. Her vow for vengeance was now entangled with the unbreakable bond of a destined mate, setting the stage for a conflict that would test not only her
In a world painted by moonlight and ancient magic, where shadows danced with secrets, lived two souls bound by a fate they never asked for. Lyra, a she-wolf with eyes like silver moons and a spirit as wild as the northern winds, was the heart of her pack. She was a warrior, a leader, and fiercely independent, but her world was about to be turned upside down by a single, undeniable pull, the mate bond. And the one at the other end of that invisible thread? Kaelen. Kaelen was the alpha of the rival Shadowfang pack, a man shrouded in mystery and hardened by a past he kept locked away. He was power incarnate, with a gaze that could tame the fiercest beast and a reputation that echoed through the valleys. Their packs were old enemies, their histories stained with the blood of generations of conflict. A union between them was not just unlikely, it was unthinkable, treasonous even. The first time they met, the world itself seemed to hold its breath. It was at the annual Truce Summit, a tense gathering where packs maintained a fragile peace. Lyra was patrolling the border when she caught his scent, an intoxicating mix of pine, earth, and something uniquely his, something that called to the very core of her wolf. And then he stepped out from the trees. Their eyes locked, and an electric shock, hot and overwhelming, coursed through them both. The mate bond. It was real, and it was a catastrophe. For Lyra, this bond felt like a cage. How could the moon goddess, the deity they revered, pair her with her sworn enemy? The man whose pack had been a thorn in her family's side for centuries? She saw him not as a destined lover, but as a threat. A weakness she couldn't afford. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to sever this cursed connection. She rejected him, her voice cold as ice, her heart a block of stone. Kaelen's reaction was not what she expected. He wasn't the arrogant, demanding alpha she'd heard tales of. In his eyes, she saw a flicker of the same shock, the same pain, and something else. A deep, profound loneliness. He didn't push. He didn't command. He simply watched her with an intensity that stripped her bare, his silence more potent than any words. He accepted her rejection, but the bond between them couldn't be so easily dismissed. It was a living thing, a constant thrum beneath their skin, pulling them together even as they stood worlds apart. Their lives became a torturous dance. Forced to interact at pack meetings, the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Lyra built her walls higher, her words sharp, her posture defensive. She tried to hate him, she truly did. She focused on the old grievances, the territorial disputes, the bitter history. But then she'd catch him in an unguarded moment, a rare, gentle smile directed at a young pup, or a look of weary responsibility as he dealt with his pack's troubles. She saw glimpses of the man beneath the alpha, the soul beneath the enemy. Kaelen, for his part, played a long game. He gave her space, but he was always there. When a rogue faction threatened Lyra's patrol, he and his warriors appeared from the shadows, not as rivals, but as allies, fighting back to back with her pack. He never mentioned the mate bond. Instead, he showed her. He showed her respect. He challenged her in sparring sessions, treating her as an equal, a warrior worthy of his steel. He learned her favorite hunting grounds and made sure his pack stayed clear. Small gestures, but they began to chip away at her defenses. One night, under the full moon's glow, Lyra was injured during a hunt. A massive boar had gored her leg, and she was losing blood fast, too weak to make it back to her own territory. She collapsed, her vision blurring, the scent of her own blood attracting predators. Just as she was about to lose consciousness, a familiar scent filled her senses. Pine and earth. Kaelen. He found her, his face a mask of controlled panic. Without a word, he gently lifted her into his arms. The contact was explosive. The bond, which had been a low hum, roared to life. A wildfire of sensation and emotion. Lyra was too weak to fight it. In his arms, she didn't feel like she was with an enemy. She felt safe. She felt like she was home. He carried her not to his camp, but to a hidden cave on neutral ground. He tended to her wound with practiced hands, his touch gentle, his focus absolute. As he worked, he finally spoke, his voice a low rumble. "I know why you hate me, Lyra. My grandfather led the raid that took your aunt's life. Nothing I can say will change that." Lyra froze. It was the deepest wound in her family's history, a secret sorrow they never spoke of. He continued, "My father taught me to hate your pack. But the bond, it doesn't care about old grudges. It only cares about what is." He told her about his own struggles, the pressure of being an alpha, the loneliness of his position. He confessed that the moment he saw her, his entire world tilted on its axis. He hadn't wanted a mate, especially not her. But the goddess had chosen, and he couldn't deny the truth in his own soul. He saw her, truly saw her, not just as a rival, but as his other half. In the flickering firelight of that cave, surrounded by the quiet of the forest, Lyra's walls finally crumbled. She saw his sincerity, his pain, his strength. She saw the man who had respected her rejection, protected her people, and now saved her life, saved her. The hate she had clung to for so long felt thin and brittle, a poor shield against the overwhelming truth of the bond. She reached out and placed her hand on his arm. The connection flared, but this time, it wasn't a shock. It was a warm, comforting current, a feeling of rightness that settled deep in her bones. Their journey was far from over. Returning to their packs meant facing a storm of opposition. How could they convince their people, their families, to accept a union that defied centuries of hatred? The elders were furious, the warriors suspicious. Betrayal was a word whispered in the shadows. But Lyra and Kaelen stood together, a united front. They were no longer just the alpha of the Shadowfangs and the heir of the Silver Moons. They were Lyra and Kaelen, destined mates. They argued that their union was not a betrayal of the past, but a bridge to the future, a chance to end the bloodshed, to unite the packs and create a stronger force against the true dangers of the world. The rogues, the encroaching humans, the harsh winters. It was a difficult, uphill battle, filled with tense negotiations and tests of loyalty. They had to prove that their bond was a strength, not a weakness. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to change minds. They led joint patrols, shared resources, and defended each other's territories as if they were one. They saw the power in their alpha's union, the hope it represented. They saw Lyra and Kaelen not as enemies in love, but as leaders forging a new destiny. Their love story wasn't a fairy tale of instant connection. It was a story forged in conflict, tempered by patience, and built on a foundation of mutual respect. It was about looking past the labels of enemy and rival to see the soul within. It was a testament to the idea that even the deepest wounds can be healed, and that sometimes the greatest love is the one you have to fight the hardest for. Lyra and Kaelen, the wolf shifters bound by fate, proved that love wasn't about surrendering your strength, but about finding someone who makes you stronger together. They didn't just find each other, they built a new world for their people, one where moonlight illuminated a path to peace, not just war. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more tales from magical worlds, and ring that notification bell. so you never miss an adventure. See you in the next one.